Welcome back to the Makeshift Podcast. This is podcast number 9. We got a very special guest today. It's Nick Surhoff, our most popular podcast invitation. How you doing, Nick?
What's going on, everyone? Thanks for having me back on. Excited.
I want everyone to know that Nick was the most viewed Spotify podcast of Makeshift Podcast history. Round of applause.
Way to go, Nick. That's a pretty high honor that you hold there, my friend.
We're going to the moon with this.
It was enough to bring it back a second time and see if we could do numbies again. So we'll see.
That's what matters, numbies.
All right, let's kick this podcast off. Zach, what are we doing today?
All right, so I had this idea, and I was going through in my head that I had a bunch of different games that I've been to in my life that had either ridiculous events happen at them or just memorable games that I thought were great. I came up with a list of 10 things. We narrowed it down. We're going to do our top 5 games that we've been to, live events, football, basketball, baseball, NHL, whatever it is. We're going to share them here today. We're going to go round robin. We're going to start with one of us. We'll start with 5. We'll all go through 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. And yeah, that's what we're doing today. I'm excited.
I'm pumped up on Mountain Dew, baby.
Viewers are going to vote at the end. They're going to leave a comment on the YouTube video, if they're there, of who had the best sports experience of the games they've been to.
Wow, this is high intensity.
So calling out all viewers, leave a comment.
All right, who's kicking it off, Zach?
I think we have to start off with our guest, Nick.
All right, Nick Surhoff, you're up first. You're on the clock.
All right. At 5, I've got. I went to my first Brooklyn Nets game, and it was Nets Heat, triple overtime. LeBron gets fouled out, I think, in the first overtime. I went with I think it was me, Venezia, Matty Moss. I thought you were there, Brian. Maybe not. But my dad and my brother, we went. It was an electric game. Joe Johnson, I think, he went for like 30, 35 that game.
He's a beast.
But it was an insane game. My favorite Nets game. I've been to probably about 8 Nets games. I think between Jersey and Brooklyn, and that one was definitely for sure on my top 5 of at least all the games I've been to. And shockingly, just letting you guys know, I got 3 Steeler games on there.
Wow, big surprise. And I think I know one of them that I'm assuming happened recently. Am I wrong?
You might have to find out. There was a lot. I had a lot because I've been to probably more Yankee games than I have in any other sport.
True.
But I think there's a reason for the other, Steelers games being there. So we'll get to them.
Did the Nets win?
The Nets did win triple overtime.
Oh my God.
Against LeBron, you said.
Yeah, because it was Paul Pierce had the last second shot of regulation missed. Then he took another one, and I think it was the second overtime, missed again to win the game. And then the Nets, as soon as really the third overtime started, they just kind of ran away with the game. I think it was 2013 or 14. Vanetti would know. I know he would know because he was there with me.
I have a feeling that we're going to have a lot of New York sports teams wins in these top 5 sports moment of all time.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at all of them. I have 3 Mets ones, actually. I didn't even realize I did that. I'll give some honorable mentions as we go along, but that's back in the era when the Nets traded for all those players and they wound up not doing anything, important. Right?
Decline. And then,
first trade of all time.
Way to kick us off, Surhoff. Do you want to go next, Brian?
Sure. Yeah, I'll go. Let's get after it. Mine is a Brooklyn Nets game as well. It was actually last year in the 2020 season. It was Brooklyn Nets versus the Chicago Bulls. And the only reason why this is in my top 5 is because Kyrie went for 53 points. So I got to see a 50 bomb in real life, which was absolutely electric. The game wasn't insanely close. It didn't go to triple overtime or anything like that. But Kyrie, one of my favorite players, went for 54 points. I'm sorry. Correct me from earlier. 54 points. And it's just crazy to see that. It was basically a masterpiece of a game. And you don't see 50-point games by NBA players live every weekend.
Damn. All right. I mean, and they also won that game, I'm assuming.
And they also won that game. I think they won by like double digits, almost like maybe almost 20 points. But 54 points in one game to see is pretty electric.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone score 50 in a game live. I want to say
Yeah.
like the most I saw was maybe like 38 or something.
Yeah,
So
That's
I
pretty
mean,
special.
that is crazy.
Well, shout out on the side. My dad went to the Steph Curry at the Garden when he scored 54.
Wow.
He won like 11 of 15 from three, had 54 points. Knicks won, but shout out, Papa Steve. All right, my turn. I might have to go.
After it.
All right, I'm like while you guys were sharing, I was kind of thinking of switching around a few because I got the full list here. I got the full 10. But the one I'll start off with, and Brian, I don't think you have this on your list, but it really genuinely should be.
I think I know what you're talking about.
We went to a New Jersey Nets game back when they were absolutely awful. They had 10 wins on the season. It was me, you, and Andrew, and your dad. And we went and they won one of their 10 games of the season. The crowd was electric. I mean, the team sucked. I don't know who they played or who they beat. I just remember that was Andrew's first sports game. I never felt so honored to bring someone to a game or go with someone to their first game and then experience that because we all thought they were going to get blown out and lose one of their 10 wins and probably one of the worst NBA seasons of all time, if not the worst. So that was my number 5. It was
going to be on my list. It was going to be on my list.
I figured, I was like, let me beat him to it. Let me ask him about it before the pod. It's the only one that I was like hinted at before. But that had to be number 5 for me. Very memorable, and shout out Andrew.
And I think that one thing that adds to it is I think we got the Thunder Sticks that game, so that helped. That helped.
Zach with Thunder Sticks is probably electric.
I went to a Nets game last week, and they gave me Thunder Sticks. They were handing them out. I'm the best Thunder Stick clapper out there. There's no one louder than me. Ask Matt Hallman. He was sitting right next to me.
That's a bold statement to make.
Kid might have popped an eardrum for how loud I was hitting those things. Unbelievable. All right, Surhoff, you're coming number 4.
Throw it around the horn.
Number 4. In 2017, I went to Steelers Patriots, the infamous Jesse James catch non-catch game.
Wow.
That was because both teams were. The Patriots were I think they were 11-3 at the time, and the Steelers were 12-2. So they were playing for that number 1 seed. And AB came out in that game, so they relied on Martavis Bryant, Juju. But I think just the atmosphere of the game, it being a 4:00 game, and it going into the nighttime, the stadium was packed. They had jets flying over the stadium for the anthem. I was on, field level right behind the Steelers bench, 6 rows up. So it was an insane time. Juju running up the sideline at the end of the game. It was just, and then, Ben with the fake spike interception. We lost, but that was so much fun to go to. If you guys ever get a chance, go to Heinz Field. I promise you. And for any Steeler fan, I've been to a bunch of them at Heinz Field, and every single fan, whether it was a Bengals fan, a Packers fan, which I'll get into, the Browns fans that I was there with, they all love Pittsburgh. So
sounds electric.
It's insane. I will go with you guys. I will drive you guys.
And I also think that the 4:00 slate games are probably the best football games to catch because sometimes you get half day, half night, and they're usually the most packed because you don't have to wake up early. You don't have to stay up too late. It's like the perfect time.
It's insane. And actually, what it made it even better was Shazier's first game back at the stadium after having a spinal injury. So they put him on the screen, and the stadium went absolutely insane.
That's a big one.
So, I mean, they lost, but that was a really insane time.
I like it.
Any game where you have like a certain signature play that you could call out and you know what game it was has to be on the list, in my opinion.
I can probably tell you every single play that has happened in that game.
Photographic memory.
I'm up.
Yep.
Here's my 4th one of all time. It is a Richmond Tigers game. It was one of the coolest experiences. The Richmond Tigers are an Australian football team. When I went to Australia, I was able to go to the biggest stadium in Australia. It's in Melbourne, and it's some crazy energy that the Australian football fans bring. It's almost like European soccer there. So each section of Melbourne has their own team because Melbourne's such a big city. So Richmond was with one section, and it's all black and white like the Steelers. And We went to this bar before, and all the Richmond fans go to this bar, and then they all leave at one time, walk to the stadium, and then the other fans from the other part of town walk at like the same or relatively similar time. And it was such a cool experience. And I think that the Australian football field is the biggest field out of any sport. Fun fact. But that was a crazy one. I think the Tigers won. I'm not really sure because it's totally different rules, but I'm a Geelong Cats fan.
Oh,
Geelong Cats.
Interesting.
It's South Australia. So that one probably meant nothing to you guys, but it was a really cool experience. And I don't expect you guys to have like any input on that. So we could just throw that one around the horn to Zach.
Geelong Cats are a very underrated team. You know, I've watched them now. Obviously haven't. Brian definitely wins most unique game been to.
Yeah,
we'll give him that award now. Unless you've been to like a ping pong match or something, Surhoff, that I don't know about. All right. Well, that's hard to top. So I'm bumping out my number 4. I had a different 4 in there. It was the third game of a 3-game sweep, New York Mets Nationals in July. There's a documentary on it, 3 days in July. I'm bumping it out, and I'm putting in this one just because of the story behind it. So my roommate Matt and I, you guys know Matt Bretzman, we went to it was Thanksgiving break. Everyone went home on Tuesday. Matt and I were like, listen, we're here for Wednesday. We're going to go home Wednesday night or whatever it was. Or Tuesday. It was a Tuesday night. So we wind up and we say, hey, let's go to the Wizards game. It's Wizards Pacers. We wind up getting seats for $8. Talk about value.
Oh my God.
The Pacers had Paul George and CJ Miles at the time. They combined for 15 3-pointers and 72 combined points.
Wow.
I think Paul George went from 41, and then CJ Miles went for 30 or 40, also 41 or 40 and 42, something like that. It was the most ridiculous performance. I think they went a combined like 15 for like 18 from 3 or something. They didn't miss. They were lights out. CJ Miles, we're joking about the whole game. He's just like one of those players like Patty Mills. Like when he gets hot, it's just funny. And Paul George And Paul George was just proving he was one of the best players in the NBA at that time. And I have to throw that in there because it's spontaneous. We bought tickets the night of, and we're like, let's do something. We went to DC. I had to throw it in there. It's there.
I would have never guessed that there would be an Indiana Pacers versus Washington Wizards game in anyone's list in this podcast.
Yeah.
But it's there, and that seems pretty electric.
I don't think I'll ever go to a Wizards game again in DC. I just don't think I will. But the one that I did go to was legendary in my mind.
It doesn't seem like
stadium nice.
It was pretty nice. Yeah, it was all right. It's nothing special.
Yeah.
All right, Surhoff, you're up.
All right. So this one is a little like quick backstory to it. But it was the Yankees Red Sox final game at the old Yankee Stadium. My dad was taking me for my birthday. And my dad worked at MLB at the time. So he took me into the office that day. We hang out and whatever. My dad working at MLB, there was always, because he worked in a commissioner's office, always current players, former players walking through and whatnot. So I'm sitting down on my dad's chair, and he's on his desk. And he goes, there's a guy that comes in the room, and I'm wearing a Jeter jersey. And he goes, wow, Jeter, you shrunk. And I look back, I have no idea who this guy is. Shook my hand, talking to me. Having a conversation, and then probably like 15 minutes go by, he walks out of the room, and my dad looks at me. He goes, you know who that was? Like, no. He goes, that's Frank Robinson.
Oh.
And for those who know baseball, Frank Robinson was a legendary. He was the first African-American head coach. And he was a great baseball player. So that was an insane moment. That was the same day. And then we go to the stadium. Yankees, I think they lost 2 games before, back-to-back days to the Red Sox. So this was a final game, bragging rights. And they went down 2-0. Giambi comes in to pinch hit, I think like the 7th inning, comes off the bench, 2-run home run, ties the game. Game goes into the bottom of the 9th. Giambi again, walk-off RBI single. It was a rocket to the wall. But it was hot that day. It was 90 degrees, sweating. But that game was one of the most electric Yankee games I've ever been to. The atmosphere. It was a 1 o'clock game. The stadium was packed.
Yeah, I love that. Is Frank Robinson the most famous athlete you think you've ever met?
Probably like, yeah, I would say so for like, I guess legendary status and whatnot. Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, every time I've been out to Pittsburgh, besides actually this past time, I've met all like a lot of the players. I was in a hotel elevator with one. Actually,
Ah.
the Steelers Patriot game, I was in the elevator with Bud Dupree, froze up.
Whoa.
I asked him in the hallway. I was like, "You ready for the game tomorrow?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then we all get in the elevator. Didn't know he was behind me, so I turn around. He's there, and I was like, "You ready for the game tomorrow?" And he laughed, and he turned around. He goes, "Yeah." And my brother goes, "Did you have any other questions?"
Nope. That's all you had.
But yeah, I think that Frank Robinson probably was. I definitely have seen other players like walk through the office, but I didn't do anything. I didn't want to be that.
Yeah, I mean, you talked to Frank Robinson for 15 minutes. I have no idea who he was until after. That's awesome.
That was insane.
Solid number 3, Surhoff. Very well done.
All right. For my number 3, we're going to college basketball. I went to a Rutgers versus Seton Hall game. I think it was 2019, maybe 2020. 2019.
I know this one.
Rutgers versus Seton Hall. This is when Rutgers was never really good at basketball. Like they just started getting decent recently. And this was like the start of their incline. So Rutgers was unranked. It was like kind of right before March Madness. Seton Hall was ranked 15th in the country. Rutgers was expected to get blown out by them. They ended up beating them by 20 points. And we stormed the court. And my friend AJ, you guys know AJ, sprained his ankle when he stormed the court. He was like out of commission for a solid 2 weeks after that. And yeah, it was a shock. Anytime Rutgers anything wins in a major sport, it's electric at the campus. And usually you storm the court or storm the field if you beat another Big Ten or a solid basketball team. So that was pretty awesome.
That's probably the best way to sprain an ankle.
Oh yeah.
Like if I was AJ, I wouldn't care.
For sure.
I would just go back to their place and have a beer.
He kept going, but
Yeah,
then when
I'm sure
he was
AJ's electric.
he was out of commission when he got back to the house. But I think that one was we didn't just beat them. We beat them by 20 points. It was the final score was 68-48. That's no
doubter.
Tight game there.
It's a Seton Hall team.
All right, Zach, you're up.
All right. I'm going to keep this one pretty short, pretty brief. It was in the Josh Smith era with the Hawks.
With Joe Johnson?
I don't know if he was playing with Joe Johnson at this time. I'm not completely positive. I just remember Josh Smith missed the last shot of the game. It was at MSG. My dad got like work tickets. We had to go with like another, father and son. And we went, I think it was like my first like real memory of the Garden. I think it was back 2012, 2013. If I went to any other games, I don't remember them that much. Melo hit a game-winning and one layup. The score was 104-103 or something. Yeah, I think 104-103. And they were down 1, and Melo hit a layup to put him ahead and 1, put him up 2. Josh Smith missed a 3 at the buzzer. I used to have a video of it. I lost it because I lost all the memory on my desktop. It's the loudest I've ever heard a stadium in my entire life. I've never heard a place louder. It was a sold-out Garden. It's back when they were good. New York was popping. And they just literally electrifying, deafening to the ears. It was one of the best experiences. I was a kid. It was awesome. Never forget. And it's kept me a Knicks fan, honestly. Since then, I love going to the Garden now.
Yeah, you need to lean on something when you're a Knicks fan for all those years.
Yeah, a lot of pain.
I've never been to MSG for a sports game.
Really?
Ever.
I don't think Brian's been for a basketball game. You've been for hockey.
Yeah, never for a Knicks game.
We should change that.
That's
literally like soon.
I went last week and they won by like 20 and it was fun. It was awesome. So I mean, I'm always down to go.
I have been to MSG for a basketball game. I went to Rutgers Purdue in the Big Ten tournament, and Rutgers won, and that was going to be on my list. But so that was pretty awesome. All right, Surhoff, throwing it to you.
All right, so we're on 2 now, right?
Yep.
We got two more Steelers ones coming from you. I'm excited.
So it's tough because this one was quickly like I went to a Yankees Royals game this year. They were down 2-0, tied the game up, lost the lead in the 8th inning by a run, gained it back the next inning. They were up 1 run. in the top of the ninth. Gave it up because Chapman couldn't, close. And then they ended up losing the lead, went down a run in the ninth inning, and then Voit hit a walk-off single. So, that game was electric. But I couldn't put this game anywhere else but number 2.
Oh, boy.
Steelers-Browns. This past season, Pittsburgh. I think it was January 3rd, Monday Night Football.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what, do you got a calendar behind you?
Yeah, I got my calendar. I was looking. I was like, wait, what was the exact date?
That was Big Ben, right?
The Big Ben's last home game.
Did you shed a tear?
I think the whole stadium did. I'll tell you what. Listen, I've been to a lot of Steeler games, like I've said. I've never heard a football stadium so loud in my entire life, because in Pittsburgh, they're literally all about football. And everyone, we had Browns fans sitting next to us, and they were even cheering, which is kind of saying something for your owner's retiring. So it's oh God, there goes our guy. But it was just insane. My dad, brother, and I, we were trying to figure out what game we wanted to go to this year. And I think it was a week before, we were just let's go. We just pulled the trigger, went, and it was fitting that they won. It wasn't, Ben style game. No game has been the last 2 years, but it was nice that they won. Nice that Najee came, performed. TJ Watt had 4 sacks. So it was insane. The atmosphere was unlike any other game I've ever been to. That's baseball, basketball, football, hockey. It was insane.
I knew that was going to be on the list. You had to put that one on the list.
I did, but it was crazy.
Well, let me just wipe my tears real quick. You got me crying over here, Surhoff. My God. That's your quarterback you grew up with. If you're a Steelers fan and you're our age, that's your quarterback. I mean, there's no one else that you would.
Any kid our age, we all grew up with, Peyton. We grew up with Eli for the Giants fans, Ben, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, and now
Chad Pennington.
Chad Pennington.
Chad Henne.
Mike Glennon.
But yeah, now he's gone. So it's wow, there goes our childhood.
Surhoff's actually going to start crying.
Yeah, we almost made Frank the Tank cry last week. I don't want to make you cry. He was talking about the Dolphins and the Mets. He was just bound to start being angry at something.
Frank the Tank is one of the funniest people to listen to when he talks, because he's so passionate. What?
Did you listen to the podcast?
I was able to catch half of it. I got to watch the other half, but the way he jumps into it, and he's such a passionate Mets and Dolphins fan that 1 week he says something and the next week he's completely going against what he said. And he has so many
it's like mood swings
to back it up. It's so fun.
It's the emotional roller coaster of being a fan of those teams. Ask me about it. I know.
I can't say I know. And I'm not saying that in any other way. It's just the Steelers have been.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to hear it.
Steelers,
I don't want to hear it.
The Yankees.
Yeah.
The whole thing here.
All right. Moving on. Brian, you're number 2.
All right. My number 2. I'm going to keep this nice, short, and sweet. It's extremely similar to Surhoff's. If people didn't know, I worked for the Giants, and I was on the field for Eli's last game. So I was filming Eli running off the field. Maybe I'm in the background of some of the videos, but they beat the Dolphins.
Oh,
thank God. And Eli retired, and it was kind of very similar to Surhoff's story. The crowd was electric. It was super, super loud. It was we love Eli. And he just ran off into the sunset, met his kids and his wife in the tunnel. And it was pretty cool to see from the field level. So that was one of the really only exciting Giants football games that I've worked, unfortunately, because I was gonna calculate the record of my time at the Giants and my time at Rutgers football, and it's probably somewhere near 15 and 40.
Yeah, that's horrible.
That's like life of a Dolphins fan.
Yeah.
I think it's just if I can't work for a professional team because they will crumble. But that's mine. It was pretty awesome. Zach, what's your number 2?
Yeah. My number 2 was the only Mets playoff game I've ever been to. It was 2006. I went with my dad, my brother, and again, a few of my dad's work people that got him tickets. It was game 1 of the NLDS in 2006 against the Dodgers at Shea Stadium. Paul LaDuca tagged 2 people out at home plate on the same play, back to back. When I said I haven't heard an NBA stadium as loud as MSG, I've never felt the electricity of Shea Stadium in a baseball stadium like I did that day. After that play, my dad's friend was doing the book. And he's like, how do I mark that? How do I mark that? Because nobody knew. You got tagged 2 people at home plate. I don't know. It was absolutely ridiculous. Mets went on to win that game. They actually went to the NLCS that year, lost in game 6 against the Cardinals, or game 7. Carlos Beltran struck out looking. I don't want to talk about that part, but first playoff game, only playoff game. If Mets ever go back to the playoffs again, and I'm in the state of New Jersey, I'm going. I was in Maryland when they went to the World Series. I didn't go to any games. My dad and my brother did. So definitely would be attending, as well as the Knicks' next playoff appearance. So that's my number 2.
Surhoff. Big round of applause or drum roll for Surhoff's number 1. Let's hear it. Steelers.
Yeah. Steelers Packers, my first ever NFL game. Ben's first 500-yard performance. It was 2009. It was freezing outside. Went with my uncles, my cousins, my dad, and my brother. We drove out there. It took about 9 hours when it should take 5 because it was a blizzard. And it was absolutely insane. My uncle's a Packers fan, so having him there was amazing. It was also Steelers won with 3 seconds left. It was about like 25 yards. Ben to Mike Wallace in the corner of the end zone. It's amazing.
Mike Wallace.
I've never seen anything like that. It was first play of the game. Play action pass to Mike Wallace down the field for a 60-yard touchdown. It was amazing. Heath Miller.
That's really starting off your NFL experience pretty high.
That's what I was saying. I was like, this is meant to be.
And that's why you're diehard.
Yeah, I mean.
Was that Rodgers or was that?
It was Aaron Rodgers. It was Aaron Rodgers. It was Greg Jennings.
I
think, Donald Driver was.
I was going to say Donald Driver.
Yeah. Michael Finley.
Michael Finley. Yeah. That's a good one.
It was nasty. The game was insane. You're up, Brian.
My number one spot, the one and only time I've ever sat courtside at a basketball game, it was New Jersey Nets versus the Phoenix Suns. And if you don't know, my favorite player of all time is Steve Nash. So it was pretty fitting. It was back in 2006.
Wow.
So I was 9 years old. Imagine 9-year-old Brian sitting courtside. Steve Nash hits a buzzer beater to send it into double OT right in front of me. And it was the final score was 161 to 157, and the Nets pulled out the dub. Steve Nash went off that game. I think I was wearing a Steve Nash jersey as a Nets fan because I'm that big of a Steve Nash fan. And it was actually, I don't know if I was doing that, but I have done that once. But courtside, double overtime, Steve Nash versus Jason Kidd. It was when Vince Carter was there. Sean Marion was on Phoenix. Richard Jefferson was there. They had the stack team, and yeah, that was mine. I just asked my dad before. I was like, what do you think our best sports game that I've been to was? And he said, no doubt, the Steve Nash Jason Kidd matchup. So that's definitely my number one spot.
Was Boki Nakbar playing that game?
I don't know, but I hope he was.
That would have brought the whole package together. All your favorite players.
I know. I just got a Nets jersey. Taylor just bought me a Nets jersey, and it's number 7. I showed my dad. He goes, "Is that a Boki Nakbar jersey?" I was like, "No, I wish."
So good. Did he wear number 7, Boki?
Yeah, he was like, "That's his number." I was like, "I'm surprised you remember that."
Who's the best player to wear number 7 as a Nets jersey? Is it Boki Nakbar or KD? Who knows?
It's Boki.
My goodness.
All right, Zach. Last one.
That leaves me. This is my favorite game I've ever been to in my entire life.
And this is off hot.
I forget if it was 2016 or 2015. No, it was 2015 because it was the first game of that series that I mentioned way earlier of the 3 days in July with the Mets. I don't know if you guys remember. Wilmer Flores cried on the baseball field because he thought he was traded. I forget where, but he thought he was traded, and he cried on the baseball field a few days before. He comes out. He didn't know if he was traded or not. The whole bench, the stadium's chanting his name. He's crying on the field. So I decided to go to a game a few days later. Matt Harvey pitches 9 marvelous innings of baseball against the Nationals. Mets are 2 games back at the time of first place with 3 games to play against Nats. Wilmer Flores walks up in a tie ball game. I think it's like 1-1 in the 12th inning. Crowd's going nuts. Every single time he came to the plate, there was a standing ovation. I think it was a 1-1 count. Gets a fastball, lasers it to left center field, right off the wall by like the M&Ms. If people know Citi Field. Off the M&Ms over there. Crowd went absolutely nuts. I mean, it was a random day of the week. I'm pretty sure. I don't think it was a weekend, maybe a Friday. And a lot of people cleared out. A lot of people went home once it went to extra innings. Single best sports moment of my life. Couldn't be happier for Wilmer Flores. We stayed after for the celebration. We got home at a ridiculous time. Unbelievable sports moment. It's my favorite thing to say in terms of a game that I've been to. It's my number one.
I remember that game.
Well, the Mets went to sweep that series, and I was at the 3rd game of that series too because I was riding the energy. I was like, I need to go to another game. So we went. It was Cespedes' first hit. I remember.
Dude, right in the high.
Had to. That was a good time to be a Mets fan, and it hasn't been so great since. But
that's a solid number one, though. I was at Tom Glavine's 299th win.
Wow.
Mets Pirates.
Wow.
Not
I
the
love
300, the 299.
There was one more. I think we got like 3 minutes here, but you weren't at the game, Brian, where Reggie Evans was like bricking free throws, and they kept hacking him.
What a name to pull out! That's Pisano's boy, Surhoff.
That is Pisano's boy.
We were sitting in box.
That was with me at the game.
I was there.
We were sitting in box seats in the game because Frank DeLilio took us, and we were sitting, and like the whole stadium was chanting for Reggie Evans because they were just hacking him and making him shoot free throws. That was a really good one. Another one, Brooklyn Nets. Darren Williams broke the NBA record for like 3.5 at the time. He hit 9 threes. Another game that I went to with Frank. I saw, Surhoff, you'll know this. Nick Swisher pitched at opening day in Tampa against the Rays. I was at that game in Tampa. I could rant off a bunch. I've been blessed throughout my life in terms of like memorable sports events. Not always the best games, but you know, usually get lucky with something random happening.
I was at Judge's first Grand Slam.
Love that. That's a good one.
I was at Joe Judge's first coaching game.
Oh, historic day. Incredible. All right. Well, I think we're closing up here on time. Surhoff, thanks again for joining us. If you're listening, leave a comment. Who had the best top 5 of sports games? Drop a comment. Maybe we'll post a poll if you're listening on Spotify. Surhoff, anything you want to say before we go?
No, thank you for having me again. Hopefully, you'll have me on yet again, and we pull some numbies up. And also, just want to say one of the best games ever been part of was it 4 times, Brian? 5 times? Beast Mode taking the Cons Tourney championships. Just putting it out there.
You're not undefeated because we beat you.
We lost to Zach and AJ, and we also lost to Gerard and Jeremy.
You're right. All right. That's a wrap for the podcast. Surhoff, thanks for coming. Go follow us on every social media platform out there. We're taking over.
You had to lay that one in, Surhoff. I hate you.